Hey everyone, good morning. This is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here at NBC Charlotte. I want to give you an update on what's going to happen with the weather the next 24 hours. We've got a pretty significant severe weather outbreak that's going to start today to our west and eventually move our direction as we go through the day on Wednesday. Now, the interesting thing about this setup is I'm very confident we are going to see damaging winds. The one thing we're not totally set on, and I'm not set on, is what the tornado threat will be for us. I do know if we see any tornadoes, even isolated ones, the chance of them being pretty strong is going to be pretty high. So let's start with what's going on right now. You see the U.S. map. We've got a couple tornado watches in the middle of the country, southwestern Missouri, most of Oklahoma. I'm going to throw a couple features on here to give you an idea of what's going on. We've got this big 500 millibar trough, which you can clearly see digging in across the Four Corners region. And then you've got a piece of energy at the base of it, this vorticity maximum. And then you see these winds, these arrows. These arrows are at the jet stream level. And when we go in real close, when you look at these white arrows, which are now moving out of New Mexico and into the southern plains, I'm going to put my arrow over it briefly here, and you'll see some of these arrows are about 125 knots, and some of them down here are in the range of 130 and 140 knots. That's an extremely strong jet stream, which jet stream maximum that's ejecting into the middle of the country. At the same time, at 500 millibars, you see a little bit of a what we call diffluence here, but when you go up to 300 millibars with these winds, you notice they spread out even more, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. We'll take the 500 millibar winds, but you see this splitting here. We've got a lot of lift being created in the atmosphere, and this whole mess is going to be shifting to the east through time, which is really going to set up our severe weather outbreak for tomorrow. Today, you can see the highest risk for severe storms right here over Arkansas. This is our high tornado probability right here, this hatched area we often call it. This is a 10% probability of EF3 or EF2, excuse me, EF5 tornadoes within 25 miles of any point on the map. And this whole severe weather area is going to be shifting east overnight and eventually impacting the Carolinas. So what's that going to look like as we go through the day tomorrow? Let's look at some of the model data. We're going to look at the NAM4 model, which is a good high resolution model going out through today. We've only got a couple hours of the run-in, so we'll let it kind of develop here. You can see what happens, though. We've got a pretty nasty squall line developing in the middle of the country, and the concern is these storms that might develop out ahead of the main line, these could be supercellular as we go through time. So this is late this afternoon into the evening hours. And if you notice, we've got two broken lines, and embedded in these lines will likely be some supercells. Now, over in the Carolinas, while this is going on, we're going to see strong low-level winds kick up, and we're going to see upslope rain develop. And so we could see a potential for some flooding if the eastern and southeastern facing slopes continue to get hammered with some of this rain. This is going out now early on Wednesday morning. We're talking around midnight now. And we'll go through the overnight hours and start heading towards Wednesday morning at about 7 a.m. So this is about 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And a couple things you notice, I do not believe we're going to see anything severe with these. These are likely upslope showers developing with the warm air advection or the low-level jet. This is our main worry here. Moving to the east. The concern for me really is the amount of wind energy that we're seeing in the atmosphere right now. I'm going to show you a couple other parameters here. One is the storm relative helicity, which is pretty much off the charts just ahead of this cold front. You start looking in these bright white colors here, you're getting, into the, 500 meters squared per second squared. On storm relative helicity, just ridiculously high amounts of shear within the lowest 3 kilometers of the atmosphere. So any storms that can get high enough are definitely going to have the potential to rotate and possibly produce 50 to 60, maybe as high as 70 mile per hour winds down at the surface. Let's look at a couple other models here. We'll go out a little bit further into the future. This is going into Wednesday during the day because we've got more model data here. And you notice the squall line as we go through the day becomes very squiggly. This is something we call a line echo wave pattern, because the echoes take on this wavy pattern. And what happens is everywhere you have a bowing segment, like in here, you get damaging winds. And then where the bow goes back, you end up with basically little spin-ups in here, here, sometimes at the base or the apex of the bow, but anywhere you get these notches, you can get spin-ups within the line. So not only do you have a high wind threat, but you have the potential for tornadoes being embedded in this line. This is about 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, and as we go further into the afternoon, the line progresses to the east. At this time, in the mountains, we're going to be seeing some extremely strong winds, because something we call the low-level jet, you heard me refer to that earlier, are winds at about 5,000 feet. They're going to be coming up at about 60 to maybe as high as 70 miles per hour. And at 5,000 feet, that will intersect with a lot of the mountaintops in the mountains. We've got the Blue Ridge, which most of it's peaking up closer to 6,000 feet. And with the rain, a lot of this will be mixing down to the surface. So my concern is really for straight line winds, even if we don't see severe storms along the front. But that seems pretty likely that we're going to at least see some of these severe storms. So it's safe to say we're going to have a severe threat tomorrow. The question is how high the tornado threat's going to be. When we take a look at the Storm Prediction Center, they've already got a pretty big area of 30% severe weather over us. And this is primarily going to be for wind, but this is combined all severe weather. If I had to guess right now, I think we'll probably see anywhere from a 2, maybe as high as a 5% probability of tornadoes, but maybe up to a 40 or 45% threat of damaging winds. So here's the thing. I know it's really easy to focus on tornadoes a lot of times, and they're extremely dangerous, but remember, your house, tree lines, power lines, they don't care what's producing the wind, whether it's a tornado or straight line winds. You get winds that high, it just causes damage. And usually the straight line winds are much more widespread than a tornado, which is maybe only a couple hundred yards wide, as opposed to a squall line like we're seeing in the models that could be several hundred miles long, producing 60 to 70 mile-an-hour winds as we go through the day. So the heads up is here. Strong winds coming in. The time frame right now looks to be Wednesday evening. This is the front on the HRW model. Here is the NAM. Let me show you updated NAM model here for the same time frame. This is basically Wednesday evening. You can see it moving across the area anywhere from 5 to 8 p.m. The GFS model is in the same kind of ballpark. We'll see if we can get it to show. Well, it's not really working, but just to give you a reiteration, there's the line in the afternoon, but all the models show it crossing our region sometime Wednesday evening. Now, it's always a good point, if you're not following me on Facebook and Twitter, to make sure you're doing so. One of the things I always recommend, if you go to my Facebook page, the funny thing about Facebook, when I post warnings, watches, weather updates, only about 10 to 15% of you see them. So what you need to do is come over here into this little box. You see the like button there, and next to the like button, right in here, I'm going to zoom in on it so you can see it a little better. See that little button right there? That looks like a gear right there. I want you to click on this. So click that, and I'll show you what it does. You'll see add to interest list. So if you do that, you can actually get notifications from this page. So it's always a good idea to go in here, add to interest, or get notifications, or subscribe, to make sure that all of my updates are going to end up in your news feed. Now, I post a lot of weather information. It's very vital and it's very important, but the key thing is I post all severe weather watches and warnings to Facebook and Twitter. So it's always a good idea to make sure you subscribe to my page or get those notifications so every single update shows up, not just every other or every 10 or whatever 5. So just a heads up, this is the severe weather potential for tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on our friends to the west. Right now, let's put the current data back up there, and you'll see what's going on with these tornado watches. So far, no tornadoes, but we've seen some strong damaging winds In fact, we've seen some 60-mile-an-hour gusts right there on the Kansas Oklahoma border. So that's the potential going into your Wednesday. Of course, I'll keep you up to date on Facebook, Twitter, WCNC.com. We have loads of radar and information there. I'll be posting updates as well. And if you don't have the Charlotte Weather app, I am a tech geek. Trust me, I don't push an app that I think is horrible. The Charlotte Weather app is great. We put push notifications. We've got great radars on there. You can send us pictures. For local weather information, please grab a local app that is basically fed from people, not computers. Don't go with automation and national coverage for local weather. Stick local and get that Charlotte Weather app. It's available for BlackBerry. It's available for Android. It's available for Apple, iOS. Go grab it now. You may need it here as we get a rare severe weather outbreak in January. On the backside, we'll start talking about winter weather, but let's get through the severe weather first. Until then, enjoy the beautiful weather today and the warm temperatures near 70. Same story tomorrow before the front, and then it all comes crashing down. I'll see you today starting at 4 on NBC Charlotte.